Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. Chapter 1. Toward evening, the blizzard and the storm swept over the city. Camille stepped off the bus, dragging two huge suitcases behind her. The cold wind and snow hit her face, and her feet were drenched in the lawn in no time. She stepped aside from the sidewalk to look in one of her suitcases for her winter boots. But a pause. Both suitcases. She realized that she had left her leather boots at her now ex-husband's house. Bad luck, she thought. But there's no way I'm going back. She reassured herself. Then her phone rang. Camille, how are you? Did you find anything? Her friend Christina asked her thoughtfully. I hope so. Paid a crazy amount of money again. Praised that the apartment was warm and clean. But it doesn't matter anymore. Even if it's cold and dirty, it can be fixed gradually. Good thing I have hands. Tired of lugging around the city with two suitcases and public transportation, said Camille. You could leave your things with us for now. And then, when you find an apartment, you could move in slowly, but you're stubborn, Christina said. Thanks, girlfriend. But I prefer to make ends meet. I wouldn't have any peace until I was in my corner anyway. Oh, I think I'm getting there. I like it here already, so close to the bus stop, Camille said, checking the house number against the note in her hand. Come on, let's get settled, if you found it. Then call me later if you have the time and inclination. Michael, I'm not going to get much sleep tonight, said Christina. Camille thought of the apartment number and found another surprise. The apartment was on the first floor, which was a great joy for her, considering her fear of elevators and occasional panic attacks. Getting into one suitcase with another, she unlocked the door with the key she'd gotten from the realtor and stepped into the apartment. The woman didn't seem to be fooled. There were no extra odors, nor were there any extra objects and texture on the walls. Camille took off on Demi's wet seasonal boots, set them aside on the shoe compartment, and walked into the kitchen. All the appliances are in place. The kitchen leads out to a spacious balcony with a pretty lighted outside. The windows on the balconies open, silently closing tightly. Camille did not have time to imagine how on long winter nights she would stand at the window, sip mulled wine in a warm plate and smoke a thin cigar. So immediately her gaze fell on an antique metal ashtray in the shape of two lions. Beautiful, she said aloud. Then she passed into the living room. Here, too, it was in good order. Minimalist heavy furniture and dark curtains, covering the exit to another large balcony. Then, in anticipation, she went to the bedroom. This is where the real beauty was. 2 bedrooms and a king-sized boudoir bed. Mirrored ceilings, heavy dark curtains in 2 layers air conditioning. Behind the wall of rooms, a paradise for love. But who would it be with now? Camille thought, and her mood soured at the fact that her Noah had treated her so cordially when he'd left her out in the cold 3 nights ago in her robe and slippers. Camille dragged the suitcases into the bedroom, spread her things out on the bed, and went into the kitchen. She opened the kitchen cupboard doors one by one, hoping to find something she could dilute with water and drink right away. When she saw something familiar, she couldn't believe her eyes. Her favorite coffee, and a full jar and dark sugar next to it. Not the owners, but just some caring parents. God bless them, Camille said aloud. In a couple of minutes, she was already sitting by the window, lighting a cigarette. Only her hands reached for the phone to call Christina and share the joy of the experience when she heard the sound of the door of her apartment opening. Camille froze. Had they already come to rob her? Well, it didn't sound like it. She heard the familiar sounds, the sounds of moving suitcases, which she had grown tired of in the couple days of searching for her apartment. Before Camille could speculate, the edge of a black coat showed outside the kitchen door, and the heavy breathing of a man was heard. Who's there? Am I calling the police now? Camille shouted. Slowly, she grabbed the knife from the table with her hand. The silhouette hissed sharply, and then there was a rumble. There were sheets of paper lying on the floor, and on them glasses not thrown. The guest in one shoe, and with trembling hands revealed himself to be little more than he had been before. "Excuse me, who's here?" "I was promised an empty apartment," he said. "Who promised you, and why on earth would you do that?" Camille came out of the kitchen, holding a kitchen knife behind her back. Seeing her, the executive-looking man made round eyes, and then his face contorted with nervous tension. "I was just given the keys to the apartment by the realtor I honestly paid, and a considerable amount. We even signed the contract. It's in here somewhere," said the man, and started going through the papers on the floor. Camille, meanwhile, picked up the piece of paper she had just put in front of the mirror in the hallway and poked the man. "Here is the contract, also signed and stamped from the payment receipts, which means I've already taken the apartment. You'll have to leave it. Otherwise, I'm calling the police," Camille said. "I'm sorry, there's been a misunderstanding." "Why call the police when you can call the rector?" said the man, and nervously started tapping on his phone. Well, just a second. What was her name?" "Evelyn, I think." "Yeah, Evelyn, the realtor. That's what I had the man spell out." Camille rolled her eyes and sat down on the pooch in the hallway. The first beep went off, and then the answering machine cheerfully reported that the subscriber's machine was turned off or out of range for Nave customers. "I don't get it. I can't get in touch. Can we call from your phone?" asked the man in confusion. "What else? How about the keys to my safe or my heart?" Camille quipped. "I'm sorry, but you can't just leave it like that. I've been lugging this suitcase around for 3 days, and today I was sure I'd be staying here. I don't want to be out on the street at night. I don't have time for that. I have a big event tomorrow. I'm a speaker. I can't afford to spend the night at the train station." The man started to get nervous. Camille looked at those trembling hands and felt her bewilderment slowly dissolve. But her brain told her that leaving a complete stranger in the apartment was the height of folly. "Have hotels been canceled in this city?" Camille asked. "But that's not fair. I paid my rent fairly. What about other people's responsibility? Do you think that's normal?" asked the man. Camille rolled her eyes once more, took her phone out of her pocket, and asked for the realtor's phone number. The pattern was the same. First a short beep, and then the answering machine answered. "Congratulations, you've been scammed," she said. "I see no reason to be sarcastic." The man changed his tone to a more menacing one and took off his coat. "We'll have to deal with this tomorrow night, after I finish some important business. Tonight I am generously leaving you to sleep in my apartment, and tomorrow afternoon you will move out leisurely," the man said, taking off his shoes. Now Camille's eyes rounded. "You're a boor, but you look like an intelligent and well-mannered man," Camille said. "Actually, I was the first one to take this apartment, and I've even settled in. My things are all over the place. I'm sorry, I don't have time to put up with a woman's whims. I need to rest," the man said, and dragged his suitcase into the living room. "What if I call the police? How's that for rest and preparation for your performance?" Camille quipped. "If you would be so kind. Let them deal with unscrupulous realtors at the same time. And you, too, should make an effort to solve this misunderstanding, because it's you who will have to look for a new place tomorrow," the man said. The argument lasted long enough. During this time, the man slowly changed his clothes, poured himself some tea, made a sandwich and offered it to Camille, but she refused to buy it. In the end, they didn't even notice how they moved on to completely different topics. The next evening, Ethan arrived late. Camille was in the kitchen by then, telling Christina how tired she was of arguing with the strange stranger in her apartment. "Well, do you need help packing? I've long deserved a quiet vacation in private, not this." That's all Camille said. "I've been trying to call realtors all day, but to no avail. I went to their office in the evening and the door was sealed. The people in the office next door said there was a bunch of crooks in there. They managed to fool a lot of people. There were a few more people like me in there," Ethan said, "and hundreds of other real estate offices have been canceled around the country. You realize that the main thing in this matter is not to punish the guilty, but to find another place to live, to vacate my apartment. Asked Camille with bewilderment. I can send the same question to you. You are the one who suffers from my presence. I like everything here. The apartment is cozy, location is good. Everything is within walking distance, and the price is reasonable. And if you find another one and have fun, it will be a beauty. It will be possible to have parties here with friends and girlfriends, Ethan said dreamily, looking up at the ceiling. A week passed in the daily arguments. On one of the usual evenings, Ethan sat at the table in the kitchen and ate a pie Camille had made. It was delicious. It had been a long time since he'd had one of these. Mom used to make it a lot. A first course, seconds, and the obligatory delicious pastries and fillings. I don't feel like I've started a new life at all. Running away from Vanessa's tantrum, I found myself in the clutches of Camille. You women are tricky creatures, aren't you? He was talking about Lena's mouth with a napkin. Look at him. What kind of father does he have in his clutches? It's called dependency, boorishness, and unprecedented impudence. But I keep hoping you'll wake up and get your own apartment, Camille said. And I'm fine with it from the start. If someone is uncomfortable here, that person has every chance of being evicted any minute. I promise not to let that happen, said Ethan, putting away the dishes in the sink behind him. Camille waited for the moment when Ethan would leave the dishes in the sink and head into the living room. It would be the perfect excuse for her to blow his brains out, give him a big fight, and force him to find a new place to live. But Ethan put on his apron and began washing the dishes. When he got to Camille's favorite glass, which usually stood on the windowsill, he wrinkled his nose. How do you drink from such a dirty glass? It's all brown on the inside, and there are so many undertones on the outside. You'd think a young woman and a toothless old woman would drink out of it. I can imagine how much coffee accumulated on the floor while you were drinking so ugly, he said, carefully cleaning the glass with a hard sponge. Camille realized she was running out of arguments, and there was nothing left to pick on. She stood at the window, talking about things, and didn't notice Ethan finish cleaning the kitchen and dash into the living room. Chapter 2. Good morning, Mom. I'm so glad to hear from you. I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm over Vanessa. Mom, it was just a dark spot in my life. Let's just forget about it. I personally want to start a new life. Ethan was on the phone on the morning of his day off. Camille woke up to a noise and came out of the bedroom. Olya, it's okay that you're not alone. And anyway, what kind of sacrilege is it to talk on the phone early in the morning on a day off? She was outraged. Mom, wait. I have a bit of an obstacle, Ethan said. With one hand, he covered the phone speaker, and with one hand, he tried to throw his robe over himself. Camille, I'm so sorry. I didn't think about it. And I didn't think about you. But I didn't think about you on purpose. Go to bed. I'll talk in the kitchen, and you won't hear me anymore, Ethan said, and went quickly into the kitchen. This is my easiest victory over him, Camille thought as she realized that her anger had gone somewhere else again. She'd expected a long argument, as they'd had from the first day. But today, Ethan had behaved in a most unexpected way. Camille went back to the bedroom and went to bed. The apartment was completely silent, but it was as if sleep had fallen away. She hadn't slept much, though. After half an hour of tossing and turning in bed, she heard a light knock on the door. What do you want? Camille shouted. Can I get you some coffee? Ethan asked, without looking in the room. Well, the croissants are still on the table. Grab a couple, Camille said and smiled. A couple minutes later, she was enjoying her coffee and croissants. Ethan left the tray and quietly closed the door behind him. What else would I load him up with? Something to keep him busy this weekend, Camille thought, munching on her croissant. It wasn't long before Camille heard another woman's voice coming from the living room. She quickly left her robe on and walked out of the bedroom. On the couch sat a woman of advanced years dressed, quite elegantly, studying her surroundings with curiosity. Ethan was fiddling in the kitchen. Camille stood silently in the doorway. Hi. Ah, you're a beauty. We've finally met. Didn't Ethan even tell you you were home today? Said the strange woman and gave Camille a little hug. Hello. And this is us talking about everything. Ethan, said Camille and went into the kitchen. He was taking his time setting the table. Are you up already? Sit down. Have breakfast with us. Mom came to visit me, said Ethan. Hello, neighbor. What, Mom? Is it okay that you should move out of here in the first place, instead of gathering all your relatives here? Whispered Camille. Ethan put his index finger to Camille's lips. Mom has heart problems. I didn't tell her I'd split up with my fiancé. She hasn't seen her. If she finds out I didn't work out again, she'll feel bad. That's when we're gonna have a real problem, because then I don't want to send her home. Like a good son, I'm gonna want to keep her here until she recovers and take care of her. So choose either keep quiet and play the role of my fiancé or peace, and quiet won't be soon enough, Ethan said. Camille rolled her eyes again, took the empty skillet from the stove, and made a slight gesture with a hint. I'd be with you like this right now, without a second thought. You think I ran away from my tyrant for a good life? I wanted to live for myself. I've been happy for 3 days tops, and then your mom has to go home. And ideally you followed her. Camille took a couple more from the table and went into the bedroom. Failed in bed. It took until almost evening for Camille to get bored. She cleaned herself up and left the bedroom, and there was beauty going on in the kitchen. A woman in an elegant dress is busy in the kitchen. She has something cooking on the stove, something baking in the oven. She herself is chopping vegetables in intricate shapes. Camille stood silently at Camille's door. What are you doing up? You've had a good rest. Dinner will be ready soon. I've decided to treat you and Ethan to my specialties tonight, she said. Jenna, that's all very nice, but please don't mess around in my kitchen anymore. As a wise woman, you must realize that two hostesses are usually cramped in the same kitchen. So please be understanding, she said. Cross your arms over your chest. You're right, I was a daughter-in-law myself. I had a mother-in-law too. I remember what it was like to be constantly interfered with. But I promised myself then that I would never allow that with my only son's wife. Personal boundaries between loved ones are paramount. But today is an exception. You both work. You've been restless. I've been wanting to do something nice for you all week, Jenna said, accompanying her speech with a charming smile. Where's Ethan? Camille asked. Sits down on the edge of the sofa. He went to take out the trash, and he's going to the store. You're both going to work early tomorrow. I want to make hot pancakes. There's no flour, no sugar, no milk left, said Jenna. You can make them for Ethan. I don't eat pancakes, or rather, I don't eat pancakes of the kind that other people usually make at my place, said Camille. What are they? Why go to all this trouble? Are you on a diet? Why do you torture yourself like that? And over there, slim as a dough, said Emily. Camille rolled her eyes again. No, I'm not on a diet. Yes, I'm happy with my figure. That's not the issue. I just don't like heavy foods. And white flour, and milk and sugar are among them. Please understand. It's important for health reasons, Camille said. Camille hoped her whimsy would make the woman turn away and distance herself. But the opposite happened. She showed genuine curiosity about Camille's eating habits, asking one question after another and listening attentively. Camille was even surprised. In 3 years of eating right, few people had listened to her with such interest. Usually all she hears is advice to forget the rules and eat whatever her heart desires. And this woman surprises her with her open mind. Jenna listened attentively to Camille and then took action. Well, then and now I'll call Ethan and have him buy buckwheat flour, plant milk, and sugar substitute for you separately. We'll make you some harmless pancakes, she said. Then she put her son in charge. Camille subsequently had to endure an active hostess in her kitchen for 3 more days. One evening, Ethan and his mother were sitting in the kitchen and Camille came out of the bathroom. The kitchen door was closed. Camille unwittingly witnessed this conversation. And you, Ethan, I don't think you pay enough attention to her. That's why she's not in the mood. She's a woman and she's meant to be under a man's care, to take care of you, to keep your hearth safe. If a woman does not do all this, it is not because she does not want to, but because she does not have enough strength. And a woman's strength is given by a man, his care and love. And you may love her in your own way, but you are ashamed to show it, or you don't know how. You should be generous with your emotions. Let her feel the only and irreplaceable. Then no one will be happier than you. Then you'll remember my words and say thank you, Mother said. Ethan seemed a little embarrassed that he was deceiving his mother. He nodded silently, and his mother went on and on with her advice about how responsible a man should be and how a woman should be pampered. Camille could not believe her ears. She's definitely a real person. Thinking, she smiled slightly and tiptoed off to the bedroom. The next morning, Jenna herself knocked on the bedroom door. Camille was not expecting it at all. She came in and sat on the edge of the bed. I'm leaving today, you tell me, but I see everything with my own eyes. You sleep in separate rooms. You're not wearing your face, and he walks around pretending like everything is normal. You didn't give in to those moments. His father and I were soulmates for almost 40 years. He was such a romantic. He could choose the right words at the right moment and surprise you with his actions. Ethan's the same way. He just doesn't always know how to show it. You just have a little patience. He'll make you the happiest you've ever been. Well, I'm off. Thank you for your hospitality. By the way, I wrote down your recipes. I'm gonna use them at home. Maybe I'll start eating right too. But you're good at it. Keep up the good work, Jenna said. And she hurried to the cab that was waiting for her in the courtyard. As Camille saw her off, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 3. Ethan, tomorrow will be exactly 30 days, just like you promised you'd only stay here for a month. Have you remembered what you have to do tomorrow? Camille asked me one night. No, I haven't forgotten. I contacted the landlady a week ago, and we met and made a contract. I made full payment for the next month. She gave me permission to stay here. If you want to go on without me, you have the same right to take your suitcase and move to any other place, Ethan said. How do you mean? You paid full price. Who am I now? Camille was surprised. I don't know. You decide. He answered dryly. So you're gonna kick me out? She asked again. No, I'm offering options. You can go on living if you want. You're not bothering me in my apartment, he said without taking his eyes off the phone. Camille went to the bedroom and took some large bills from her bag, returned to the living room, and handed them to Ethan. I'm only willing to live here on full rights, not at the bar's mercy. Thank heavens I'm able to support myself for now, she said. Whatever you say, Ethan said, and took the money and put it on the nightstand by the couch. Camille was about to continue their eternal argument, but her phone rang. Yeah, hi, Mom. How are you? What do you mean you're here? Why didn't you tell me where you were standing? What are you doing there? Mom out at night. Jesus, you're lost. Camille panicked. Ethan raised his head and listened curiously. Take any cab and hand me the phone. I'll explain the address where you'll go next on your own. This isn't your village where you can sleep in 3 pines. Come to my place now that you're here. I wish you'd given me more notice in the morning, Camille said. Is yours coming now? Ethan asked ironically. Yes, she's already here, hanging around the station. Unable to get transportation, Camille said. Maybe I should go get her and bring her back, Ethan suggested. No, she'll take a cab. I beg you to be more discreet with her. She's a deep believer who doesn't welcome the kind of lifestyle you and I have. And proving that you and I have nothing, well, that's a hell of a number. I've got Chertkovo all around me. How can I explain to her that Camille is worried about you? Well, tell her what's the problem. Tell her we didn't share an apartment. She liked both of us, that there is enough space for 2 of us, that in principle lived together for more than a month, and never once attempted on each other's lives. That was it, Ethan suggested. Before Camille could think of what to do, the doorbell rang. On the threshold stood her mother, all frozen from the winter Volga, with a red nose and satisfied eyes that she had finally reached her daughter, whom she had not seen for almost 6 months. "Oh, how nice it is here, warm, light, and smells. Mom, I'm not here alone. We live here with Ethan, but he's nobody. It's just that one of us got dumped by a realtor, and we didn't want to move on. We both stayed here, but I'm trying my best to squeeze him out of the apartment. It's not working out yet," says Camille. "Hi, Emily, how nice of you to finally make it. We're so happy to see you. I even put the Peking duck in the oven for you. It'll be ready in an hour. Let me take care of you," Ethan said, and took off the woman's heavy coat. Then Camille led her mother into the kitchen, and Ethan was already in the kitchen. "You know, Emily, we're doing very well here, all within walking distance. The apartment, as you can see, is on the sunny side in the morning, and even the sun's rays caress your face in bed. The neighbors are quiet. No one bothers anyone. For you, there is a park nearby where you can walk and breathe the air. I'll take you for a walk there myself sometime. And you tell me, how is life in the village? How is it like in your own village? What news and trends are there?" Ethan asked, not letting Camille say a word. Emily loved to be asked questions, especially about news from the village. She began to tell with enthusiasm about how her neighbor Olizia's husband got drunk the other day and pounded her as the whole village undressed them. Then she told about the village oligarch, who gives all the villagers money at interest and takes their property from the house as collateral. The other day, Smith got a boomerang. His young mistress showed up at his old wife's house. Such was the uproar in the village from the rumors that it was impossible to tell. How could she not forget Sophia, who for so many years had not appreciated her husband Benjamin, the golden boy in the village? Benjamin had recently fallen for a new teacher from the city. She turned out to be so quick that she managed to steal Benjamin away from the family, leaving him with 3 children, and got pregnant. Now Sophia is walking around biting her elbows. Benjamin and his new wife are hugging on every corner, not recognizing either the old or the young in the village. Ethan listened attentively, asking clarifying questions in places. It was as if Camille did not exist in the apartment. Whenever she tried to draw her mother's attention to herself, she waved it away. "Camille, well, you'll tell me later. Can't you see Ethan's interest in hearing the story of Smith's fornication? Get off," she said, and switched to Ethan again and again. "Anyway, listen, what happened next? Smith's wife was a bitch, and his mistress was even worse. So one day we hear a noise in their yard. All the neighbors are gathered, who are filming on their phones. Who's sticking up for the wife? Who's sticking up for the mistress? Everybody's looking at Smith. Whose side is he gonna take? And he just disappears without a trace. So we ended up having to separate the 2 fighting women from the whole village." Smith's wife told her mistress all the details of their life together. Turns out the mistress had noticed his sins too. What do you think? They both agreed that he was to blame for all their troubles. "And let's search together now, Smith," to blow on the doorstep, properly told the mother, and together with Ethan laughed at the top of their voices. "Mom, me at work, one colleague is stressing me out. She's just like your Smith's wife." Camille made another attempt to insert herself into this fascinating dialogue. "Well, you're not a little girl. You'll figure it out on your own." "And Ethan, listen, what happened next?" The mother persisted. "But really, Camille, why are you interrupting a person?" Ethan was puzzled. After dinner and the fascinating tales, everyone went to their rooms. Camille decided to make up Mother's bed in her room and lay down on the mattress on the floor. But Mother's need to talk seemed to have just opened up. "Camille, why are you being so rude to Ethan?" she asked when her daughter was almost asleep. "Because Mom is someone else's man," she replied. "But what a man, attentive, understanding, and with a sense of humor. Not like your stale, without a sense of humor. Camille, you're a big girl. You're 35 years old. 40's around the corner. Stop flirting. I can see he's interested in you, and you're just lying to yourself. You're not teenagers huddled together. Just tell each other the truth. Live your lives like your mother said. Say what? Mom, he's just some random guy living in my apartment temporarily. He'll be here for a couple weeks at the most. Then he'll either find another apartment or go to a hotel. I'll put his suitcase out the door anyway, Camille said. You're an idiot. You don't put people like that out on the street. Before you know it, some fast one. I'll pick him up, said the mother. He's not a kitten to be picked up. If he goes to another woman, it's his will and his right. He's a grown man, and I don't know how to manipulate, Camille said. Mom went on for a long time telling various life stories with the implication that Ethan was good, and that for Camille, he might be the last chance. Emily only stopped when she heard her daughter's non-loud snoring. She chooses, but she snores. Who's like that? She said and went back to sleep. In the morning, Ethan got up first and was already rattling the dishes in the kitchen. When Emily saw this, she almost lost her mind. Oh, Ethan, you fly. You're still cooking. You're my good man. Let me help you. No, breakfast is for moms. A gentleman's task is just scrambled eggs. Here's your coffee. Welcome to the table, he said. Camille was on her way to the bathroom and heard the dialogue through the open door. And Camille, that always sleeps so long, asked her mother, but how to tell? She is certainly not a lark, Ethan answered her. But in the village we start the day early before the sun has risen. The sky is only blue. And we are already who is digging in the vegetable garden, who is blowing the cow, who is rushing to the market. Oh, that's where our life is boiling. I don't know who Camille has turned into so sleepy. I must have neglected her upbringing. I reread the mother. The touching conversations between Emily and Ethan were beginning to annoy Camille. She counted on her mother to at least inquire about her condition after breaking up with another beau. Support and guidance, but there's not even a hint of that. All the more this touching friendship was not limited to a cute conversation within the apartment. That same evening, as Camille was leaving work, her mother called. Camille, I almost forgot to tell you Ethan invited us to a restaurant. I wrote down the address. He said you'd take me there. Come get me. We'll go together. Or send a cab, Emily said. Wonderful. You didn't have the option of telling me beforehand. I was actually going to the pool. I'm bringing slippers to my swimsuit. Camille was indignant. You don't need a pool. Let's go to a restaurant. Especially when a normal man calls. I don't remember your no taking us to a good restaurant. Is your mother standing outside waiting for you? Said Emily. Dinner at the restaurant followed the same format as at home. Ethan and Emily chatted all the time, laughing about everything, making fun of Camille, and Camille was always looking out the window in her thoughts. Her mother would occasionally nudge her in the side, making her laugh with them for company. When did you go to bed? Camille could not bear her irritation and said, Mom, stop flirting with him. He's a complete stranger to us. We don't know what's in his head yet, and he's got an eviction date coming up. There's no need to see him as a potential son-in-law. If he had such intentions, I would have noticed it, Camille said. And you think it's so easy for them to flaunt their intentions. They're shy, too, fearful, worried, hesitant, a lot of silly girls. Like you, they say no to the good guys, and then they have to spend years licking their wounds. That's why you have to treat him very carefully, very gently. I've been carrying something here. I've been giving him a hint there. I lightly touched his shoulders, stroked his back casually. A woman should be cunning. Except you're not very feminine. I don't know who you're like, Mother said. Camille waited for the day of her mother's departure home more than when she was a child. She waited for New Year's Eve. The night before, she had urged Camille to be gentle with Ethan. And then she repeated that admonition 3 times in the morning. As soon as Camille had put her mother on the departing bus, she breathed a sigh of relief and decided to devote the day to herself. But it did not go in vain for her. Chapter 4. Camille decided to take a day off work that day. It was an hour after her mother had left. She sat in the cafe by the window and waited for Christina. She, too, was free that day. Very quickly. Instead of the aroma of coffee, a stately bottle appeared on the table, and in parallel with the laughter, there was the clinking of glasses. "So what's up with your Noah? I guess your phone is breaking up," Christina asked. "No, he hasn't called once." "Certainly not a text," replied Camille. "How come? What kind of weird relationship was that? How did you manage to bake it for 3 years that even your absence does not notice?" "Surprised, Christina. I am. I'd like to know what I did to him. But there's not even an attempt to get in touch," Camille said sadly. "It's hard for me personally to understand why it didn't work out. He was so gentle, so caring, and he praised you all the time. You seemed like the perfect couple," Christina said. Camille laughed nervously. "Didn't you know that family tyrants like to play to the public twice a year? It's easy to praise in front of everyone, but to live every day with a woman, apparently, for him was very difficult. All our mutual acquaintances are sure that in our relationship with Noah I am the bitch, because he played in public, and I did not know how to do that. I waited for him sleepless nights while he sat somewhere with his friends. I cooked meals for 2 every night, and then I didn't even introduce myself. Eventually, it all went in the garbage. We had a joint budget where I was the only one contributing, and we both took. And he's no more likely to tell all this to nosy acquaintances." Camille did. "You can't really tell he's that kind of person. Christina's already left. That's not all. He and I lived like brother and sister for 2.5 years. He didn't think of me as his woman," Camille said. "Really? Is that how it works? Did you just stand there silently?" Asked her friend. "What to do? If I wanted to quietly find another and cheat, we would have stayed together for a long time. I did not want to go that treacherous way," said Camille. "Well, then you were right to leave. It's generally difficult to live with someone who works closely with criminals. There, after all, the psyche changes in a bad way. So they say." "Apparently it's true," Christina said thoughtfully. "It is. There's something else that's characteristic of them. He started making jealous threats. In these attacks, he had the idea of getting rid of me in a way that seemed natural," Camille said. Christina was even more horrified. "And maybe," she whispered. "Are you serious? For some reason, I can't get the image of an ironic romance novel into my head. He seemed like such an adequate man to me. It's all very subtle. There are a lot of strange suicides in the news, like jumping off a roof or a balcony. Well, that's not always the case. I mean, most of the time they get help. Mine was planning something like that too. The first time he tried it, in the heat of the moment, he just lifted me up and befriended me under the guise of a truce. I didn't fight back. A couple months later, another similar scene where he lifts me up and carries me to the window. I'm perplexed. He reassures me. Let's get some fresh air. And he's holding me down. How's he doing? After a couple of months, he lifted me up, brought me to the window on the 7th floor, put me on the sill of the open window, and rocked me back and forth. It's like he's joking. At that moment, I was so hysterical that almost all the inhabitants of the house ran out into the street because of my screaming. Since it was dark, they didn't realize who was shouting. But my tyrant quickly let me go, and then scolded me that I do not understand the joke. That was the last night I spent in his company. Do you think nosy loved ones will enjoy listening to this?" Camille asked. "No, I'm just shocked. I can't imagine how a person can be so different," said Christina. "Forget it. Put it all out of your mind. Let's drink to the fact that in the future such wonderful and caring ones will not appear on my way," said Camille, and drank another glass of wine. She got home late in the evening when she entered the apartment. Her feet were wrong and her hands were not on the doorknob. Hearing a rumble in the hallway, Ethan went out to look about. "Someone we had a fun time," Ethan said. "Yeah. Do you mind? What does your opinion matter to me anyway? And why are you still here? When are you moving to a hotel or another apartment?" "I didn't order extra men to my place," Camille said, barely squeezing out each word. But Ethan wasn't listening to her. He helped her take off her shoes and put on her slippers. Camille walked with great difficulty to the living room and began searching the large table for something. Previously, everything on its surface. "Where's my speaker? I want to put on some music, and you're going to dance," she said. "Not again, Camille. It's time for you to go to bed now," Ethan said. "Oh, he used to just live on my property, and now he's bossing me around. Aren't you my apartment mate anyway? Maybe you should give your commands to someone else somewhere else. For example," Camille said to her woman, "I'm not going to discuss my personal life with you, and you need rest, not noise and noise at 0 o'clock. Or should I pour you some more wine?" asked Ethan. "You can pour your own wine, too. Just don't bother me. I don't know you." Camille was indignant. She drank another glass of wine. Ethan waited patiently and poured more wine, until Camille completely lost control of her body and collapsed on the sofa in the living room. He hoped that this way she would fall asleep faster and her drunken head would not have time to come up with any odious ideas. But no such luck. "Ethan, I'm thirsty, not family. Water." She screamed after a couple hours. Ethan pretended not to hear her, but not 2 minutes later, Camille stood up and walked erratically into the kitchen. Next thing you knew, there was the clattering of dishes, the shrieking yell of Barsik the kitten, the sound of Camille's strong mat, and the sound of the water graphene breaking. Ethan had to get up and take control, and the next morning they were both in for a surprise. Camille woke up first and found herself in Ethan's arms. She got up slowly so as not to wake him. She walked to the kitchen, poured coffee, and grimaced as she tried to remember what had happened. But there was nothing left in her mind but the clinking of glasses, coffee, and Christina. She returned to the living room, brought in a large suitcase from the balcony, and busily stuffed it with things. When the suitcase was full, she stormed into the bedroom and yanked Ethan's blanket, still lying there with his clothes on. She was indignant. "Hey, roommate, enough with the pampering. You're out of line," she said. Ethan opened his eyes and looked questioningly at Camille. "I said go away. I've got all your things packed up and put them by the door. And they're waiting for you," Camille said. "What's the reason? Why am I being kicked out of my apartment by a strange woman?" he asked. "You know what for? It's obvious. Get out before I get angry," Camille said and pointed to the exit. Ethan got up, washed and shaved leisurely, and then collected all his supplies from the bathroom. He put them in his suitcase as well, and then quickly left, slamming the door. The unexpected began a couple days later. The memory came back unexpectedly. Camille was on the phone telling Christina about how she had cleverly kicked this Ethan out the door for taking advantage of her defenseless drunken state. Suddenly, a picture started to form in her head. She came in drunk, then wine in the fridge, then spilled in the living room. Ethan lay on the floor. Then there was a long chatter from her, and an incomprehensible one at that. Then she got thirsty, then went to the kitchen, broke some dishes, but she couldn't drink on her own. And that's when she realized how weak and defenseless she was, that she couldn't even draw water from the tap on her own. So she sat on the floor and started crying loudly until Ethan came and helped her to drink water. But the hysteria didn't end there. What I want so much from this life is a simple, human relationship between me and someone else who will not try to quietly throw me off the 7th floor or wonder if I am 2 months as an absence from the common territory. Is just that I do not aspire to untold riches, to power, do not aspire to see someone else's. I would like to have just mine, and that's all. Tell me, Ethan, is that so much? Did she bring you?" Toward morning, Ethan managed to persuade her to go to the bedroom. But even there, Camille wouldn't rest. "I know where my problems come from. It's my father's fault. He was as cold as an iceberg, always dissatisfied, always indifferent. I don't remember him ever hugging me when I was little and telling me he'd never hurt me. What in this world that is hostile to women? I have hope and support, and I didn't have that in my adult life. His words would have been enough for me. One hug, one pat on the shoulder. I'd have moved mountains. You're just like everyone else." Then she switched to Ethan. "I'm here 2 o'clock straight. Why am I telling you stories? I'm telling you to give me a hug instead of a father hug. Comfort me, cheer me up, that everything's gonna be okay. Is that so hard? Or do you need a very good reason for that too? Or even here you think you'll be rewarded for it?" She reread it. Then Ethan silently came over and put his arm around her shoulders and put her to bed and began to tell her a story that Camille tried her best to understand. But sleep was stronger with her at that moment. She only remembers his voice and her soothing. This, in fact, was the position in which they woke up in the morning. "Crisis. I am ashamed," she said. "Suddenly I remember he didn't molest me. Nothing like that happened. And I'd been stupid enough to kick him out the door. He's the only person I've ever opened up to like that. And he had the right reaction," Camille said. "That's because you're so upset with Noah. Do you know anything? How this Ethan came into your life, where he used to live and with whom? What's his story?" Christina asked. "I have no idea. I've never been interested. For more than 2 months I know that he works in an office somewhere, promoting his ideas. He's always writing something in his day planner. He reads something, doesn't talk much to outsiders. He's not much interested in TV. He gets annoyed with the internet. He's such a weirdo," said Camille. "Well, now that he's gone, what's there to say about him? You should think of yourself," Christina advised. Camille finished talking to her friend, but the calmness in her soul did not become any more. On the contrary, remembering the truth made her feel worse. A couple more days later, she found an unpleasant surprise in the morning. A severe headache and fever prevented her from getting out of bed. Camille managed with difficulty to call her supervisor and inform him of her illness. She stayed home that day. The worst of it began closer to lunchtime. Bone, or felt as if heavy machinery was driving over her. It became harder and harder to breathe. She dreamed of only one thing: to somehow get to the phone she'd forgotten in the living room and call an ambulance. But she didn't have the strength to get up. She managed to get up and make a few steps to the living room, only in the evening when she picked up the phone and couldn't remember the number of the ambulance. But she managed to get through to the last contact in the phone book and make some sounds before she fainted. She woke up in the hospital. "How did you manage to catch a cold like that? You were running a fever." "When I got here," said Ethan, who was standing guard outside the room while the doctors tended to Camille. "I don't know how it happened, but it was so awful I was sure I wasn't going to make it. I called you to let you know that my body had not been left for long undiscovered," she said. Camille was discharged a week later. All this time, Ethan visited her every day before going home. She told him, "You wouldn't be sorry to leave a sick woman to live alone. What if something else happens to me? Actually, the sick woman herself kicked me out of the door." After struggling with her for a long time, a man also has a limit to his patience. It turns out, Ethan answered her, "Go back and live as long as you want." "You're not bothering me anymore," Camille said. Ethan paddled out of the hotel the same day and came back to Camille with his suitcase. "What a mess you've made of the apartment in a week. I told you to buy a good hair mask, or to walk around at home with your hair tied up so it doesn't cling everywhere," he resented, while he made a habit of doing the house cleaning alone. "Can I help you?" Camille asked, occasionally lifting her head from the couch and distracting herself from her game on her phone. "Please don't get in the way," Ethan answered her, picking up Camille's scattered belongings. "Fine, if you don't want to, that's fine. I'd better take care of dinner and lunch. As long as I feed you and me deliciously," Camille said. Ethan thought it would be nice to finally taste something from this woman's hands. It was nice to be able to share in the household chores. He did the rest of the general cleaning with great enthusiasm, in anticipation of Camille's specialty. But when he was almost done cleaning, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it myself." "I'm on my way," shouted Camille from the bedroom. "Hello. Why is it taking me so long to complain about your service? The pizza must have gotten cold, too." Camille was indignant as she took her Ethan order. "Enough with the mop. Come on, let's go eat. I ordered rolls and pizza, she announced solemnly. Chapter 5. Why didn't you take offense when I kicked you out? Camille asked. A few days later. I didn't even think about it. It's not my first priority right now. I'm at an important stage with my projects. I'm concentrating on that, replied Ethan. And if there were no projects, would you be offended? She asked again. If there were no projects, I would invent them. Otherwise, one is left to live with resentments towards women and figuring out relationships with them. Ethan said, I have a proposal for you. Unless, of course, you have another woman on the horizon. But I don't think there really is. She looked at him questioningly. You're right. I've been alone since things didn't work out with Vanessa, Ethan said. Why don't you and I try to trust each other and go on with our lives together? If it doesn't work out, we'll just tell everyone we were just roommates. And if it works out, fine, Camille said. I agree. I suggest we celebrate tonight at a restaurant, said Ethan. It's so simple. You hate the way I throw things around the apartment. I rarely cook at home. I sleep in until dinner time. I forget to buy groceries on weekends. And that's not my entire list of abilities. You're just signing up for this? Camille asked. Camille, let's put it this way. You and I are old enough not to play psychological games. We'll try to think about it sometime. If you don't feel like doing something, don't do it. If you feel like sleeping, sleep. Because chances are you'll want to do something afterwards. I know that because you don't force yourself to do anything either. Especially not forced to answer all your trick questions. Trust me, it drains my energy. And you too. I prefer to use my energy for business. If you can, recognize this moment and accept it. And we leave for the restaurant at 7:00 p.m. sharp, Ethan said. Chapter 6. It's been 6 months. Mom, I think the day I moved into this apartment changed my life. Things are good with Ethan. He's still all business. I'm trying to get more rest. It turns out that when I'm rested, I'm better at other tasks. I started cooking at home more often. I collect things for myself because it's a shame to see Ethan coming late from work and putting the apartment in order with a sullen face. Camille told me, and I told you there was a point in sticking with him. You just wouldn't listen. I was just in time to be rebuked by Emily. No, Mom, in those days, I really wasn't ready to even consider him as a mate. It all worked out because we gave each other enough time and didn't obsessively show ourselves. As it were, Camille said. And with the one he had before, by the way. Who is he? Where did he live before you? What's on his mind? What are his plans for the future? Did you even ask about that? My mother asked. No, I didn't, Camille said. Well, you should. It's the 4th time you're not yours, and your mind hasn't grown a bit. Just don't cry to me tomorrow that you're left at a broken trough again. Then why did you waste so much time? If you don't know any of the facts of his life. The mother was indignant. Mom, you were the one who was friends with him and talked to him for a week. You were the one who talked for hours on end. I thought you had at least had time to learn more about him. Since you were pushing me into a relationship with him, what were you thinking at the time that Camille was angry about? But I looked at the way he is on a day-to-day basis. He's not rude. He doesn't swear. Treats everyone with respect. Well-mannered. I was impressed. How would I ask him about his past? What am I his age? There have to be boundaries, right? I'm pretty good with that. Such details should have been asked. You, my daughter, my well-off mother said. Camille was surprised at the end of the conversation. She was sure her mother would be pleased and wished them happiness in the future. Instead, she dwelled on his past and on Camille's possible lapses in regard to her new chosen one. Camille decided to talk to Ethan about everything and to check him out better at the same time. With these thoughts in mind, she went to his office unannounced. She intended to see his place of work at last. You're here to see Ethan. He's not seeing anyone today. It was his decision, said the receptionist at the door. Hey, what's your name? Wendy. Tell him Camille's here. And you said Camille. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you Camille? Then you're only allowed a minute. Wait, I'll warn Ethan. He just asked not to let outsiders in. But relatives are allowed, said the secretary. Camille was once again surprised and mildly embarrassed that she had defaulted to fighting with the secretary. When she entered the office, Ethan was indeed swamped with his business. Ethan, you and I have been in a relationship for 6 months, and I still don't know about your past. We need to talk about it, said Camille. Take a seat in the chair. We can postpone this conversation until the weekend, or at least tonight. I've got a lot on my plate. As you can see, in 2 days, the management has full confidence in me. I must not fail in this task, Ethan said. I don't understand. Do you care about me or your job? Camille asked with a puzzled expression. Ethan sighed heavily, closed his laptop and said, My life is not limited to just my job or just a woman. I just realized something. It turns out that when I'm put in front of a choice, I lose my strength. On that and this front, there are opportunities in the future not to put me in front of such a choice. Honey, Ethan asked, or is it an impossible task? Do you think you were interested in a man who has no ambition, or a man with only relationships on his mind? By the law of logic, such a man would have too many expectations for a relationship and would torment you. In my mind, which one would you choose? Camille thought about it. I realize something else right now. You don't like being forced to choose only one aspect of life either. But we all want all facets of life to be full, and right, he kept talking. I still don't get it. I don't like your multiple explanations. Just tell me in a nutshell what happened earlier in your life. How did you end up with me? What are your plans for the future? And that's it. I won't have any more questions, Camille said. You and I will talk about all of this on our day off at the restaurant table. For now, I'll see you later. Uncle Ethan has to work, he said. You're right. Camille's out the door. Camille, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. Would you like some tea or coffee? Asked the secretary. Thanks. I'll go. You can't bother me. Camille said with her lips. No, you don't think so. Family members of our team are always welcome in the office. It's just that it's that time of year, and Ethan's really busy. If you'd like me to give you a little tour of our office, said Wendy. And no, thank you. I'm not interested, Camille said and left the office, slamming the door. She barely waited to leave the business center, almost dropping her phone. Christina, but pick up the phone. Finally, she muttered. Camille, what are you doing? Like a madman. I managed to call 3 times in 2 minutes. Christina answered. Christina, you have no idea what just happened. I can't believe this isn't a movie. Anyway, I decided to exercise my inner goofball today and went to Ethan's office to have an urgent relationship talk. Turns out his secretary knows me and got me in to see him, even though he wouldn't let anyone else in. He promised we'd talk about the relationship over the weekend, but I pretended that I was offended and didn't understand and all that. And then the secretary offered tea, coffee, a tour of the office and all that. Anyway, I felt like some kind of important lady in this office. I think he's broadcasting to the whole house, Camille said. That's right. That's the way to handle them. Are you gonna hold on to your victory till the weekend? Like you don't understand anything and you insist on explaining the relationship. It works well on them, Christina advised. Not 3 days later, Ethan himself suggested to Camille that they talk about what she was so fiercely interested in over the weekend. By lunchtime, they were sitting at their favorite restaurant, and Camille pretended she was still offended. I was walking back from my part-time job as a student. It was over a bridge on the embankment, and it was late. There's a thick fog. It's freezing rain. I was walking along the bridge and saw a girl 2 steps away from me trying to climb over the concrete railing of the bridge, but there was only a precipice and a raging river below. I managed to take a couple wide steps to hold onto her by one arm. She was demanding that I let her go. I realized that if I let go, she would race off the bridge. I forcefully pulled her off the edge of the bridge. Then she cried and told me she was tired of life. I started to ask her what had happened. She was an ordinary student of 22 years old. She didn't have any particularly difficult problems in her life. Nevertheless, she decided to leave her life. I was very young and did not realize that this problem would be with us for life. I was sure that I could awaken her interest in life, so gradually we got used to each other. Then we entered into a relationship, but it was a difficult one. Vanessa was pathologically jealous. I tried not to give a reason, but then there were other claims. That and not enough attention. Then it is too much. Then and want to give up everything and stay at home. I make her live in a reclusive feeling. After marriage, nothing changed for the better. On the contrary, everything got worse. One day, she asked me to leave and leave her alone. We agreed to take a break for 1 month. But not a week later, Vanessa came to my work and made a scandal on the grounds of absolutely unreasonable jealousy. I barely escorted her out, put her in a cab, and sent her home. That same evening, she sent me a picture of herself from the precipice of that very bridge. I was frightened, and I rushed over a few minutes later at breakneck speed, breaking all the rules and risking my life. But Vanessa wasn't there. I called every hospital and emergency room. Vanessa wasn't there. I later got the idea to go to our apartment, where she lived alone for the time being. When I arrived, she was sitting with a strange man drinking, complaining to him about her plight, and killing her husband sensually. That is about me. The man left immediately. I was going to talk to Vanessa calmly, but she started threatening again from the balcony. That was just one episode from our life together. How many episodes were there after that? One day I got to the bottom of it. Vanessa would get depressed from time to time. I urged her to see a doctor and deal with the problem. In response, she threw another huge tantrum and took offense that I thought she was inadequate. I then gave her another month without him present to calmly think things through. She ended up seeing a doctor, signed up for psychotherapy, and went to sessions faithfully. One day she was ripe for a deeper conversation and told her worst secret. Vanessa lived with her mother, who was not distinguished by high moral responsibility. She often brought men into the house who immediately became a cohabitant. One of them turned out to be a scoundrel. He molested. When Vanessa was a teenager, when Vanessa told her mother about it, she advised her to keep quiet and not to stir up any more strife between her and the man she loved. This only unleashed her hands, which made her have to fight the terrible threat alone. On those days when her mother was not at home and her stepfather stayed home on purpose, she would immediately go outside. Sometimes her mother did not show up until late at night. On such days, Vanessa would hide in a neighbor's abandoned barn. One day a neighbor suddenly came in and found the girl trembling with fear. She was even more frightened. Then the neighbor brought her into the house and asked her what happened. Vanessa was afraid to tell the truth, so she lied that her mother had punished her for a double at school. The neighbor told her off. He told her to study hard and brought her back home and handed her over to her stepmother. Vanessa realized that day that she had nowhere to turn for protection. At that moment, she made a firm decision to fight for herself. And the next time her stepfather gave her an obscene look, she went up to him herself and whispered that if he only touched her, she would poison him. As proof of the seriousness of her intentions, she showed a bubble from the entryway, into which Vanessa diligently slept some penicillin. The stepfather wasn't confused either. He snatched the vial out of Vanessa's hands. At the same moment called her mother home and threw a tantrum that her daughter was going to poison him. The mother recalled that she had recently slandered him for harassment. The stepfather put the mother in the position of choosing either her daughter or him. The mother chose the man without a second thought and said nothing to her daughter. Vanessa spent a few days thinking about it, and after a week, she found herself not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to eat sleep. Nothing works. I don't feel like living at all. This was the first episode of her severe depression. Vanessa was unlucky that her mother was visited by her own sister in those days. Her aunt took her into town and showed her to specialists. Those helped the girl. She was able to return home and catch up with her grades. But one day, one of her classmates told her that Vanessa was crazy. because she had been treated in a mental institution. The others laughed, but the cruel teenagers liked the idea so much that her name was changed to Psycho, branded Vanessa. No one was friends with her. No one socialized with her. When she became a student, she found out that the story of her illness and about psychotherapeutic treatment was told to everyone by her mother. This event was once again the cause of a new depression that led her to the bridge cliff. Vanessa told me everything. I was still supporting her as best I could. The sessions were having an effect. She was transformed. She had a renewed interest in life. She looked beautiful, changed jobs, made plans. She was able to restore everything except our relationship. One day, she cooked a candlelight dinner and at the table told me that our relationship was over. I took it right and left the house. And most importantly, I am at peace with her. Now she can be truly happy. That's the whole story of my previous relationship. Ethan concluded his story. Chapter 7. The early doorbell surprised Camille. Today is a day off. She and Ethan were not expecting anyone to visit. She opened the door and saw a familiar face on the doorstep. "Oh, Jenna, how unexpected would you be to give us a heads up? We would have been prepared." Camille was stunned. Jenna entered the apartment without waiting for an invitation. "What if it's unexpected? There won't be room for Mom," she asked, taking off her coat and handing it to Camille to hang on the coat rack. "Why are you seeing me for the first time?" she reproached. Camille immediately noticed the unfriendly tone of Ethan's mother. Jenna walked leisurely into the kitchen, sat down at the table, and looked around carefully. "Just like you didn't cook at home. You don't cook, so there is not even the smell of food. And the coziness in the house begins with the smell of delicious baked goods and marinated meat. Do you vegetarians understand that?" She read it. Camille didn't recognize the friendly woman she'd seen last time. "No, we cook, of course. It's just that today we were going to go shopping, then to the movies and eat out. It's a day off. After all." "Unsure," Camille said. "Right? It's a day off. So Ethan should be resting, not going shopping and going to the movies. And I'll probably have to cook," Jenna told me, rolls her eyes. Seeing their mother's mood, they had to cancel their plans for the day off. Jenna started a big cookout at the same hour, all the while wailing, "But do you expect me to have grandchildren, or do you have a problem? It's not a small age. The fourth tend to trade now unlikely to get," she said. "Camille, we're not planning it yet. We're just in a relationship. We're not even married," Camille said. "That's a good thing, because you've seen the one he's married to." She enjoyed herself for almost 10 years. And then she said goodbye. She wanted a new adventure. No luck. My son has no luck. Breaking down the wall. "What's wrong with her? Did you say something wrong to her?" asked Ethan in a whisper to Camille, noticing his mother's changed attitude. "No, on the contrary. I've just been nice to her this time, and she won't even hear me," Camille replied. But Mom had come straight from the road to the stove. "You're tired." "She will. We'll all go together. We'll go to a movie somewhere." Ethan suggested it. "Sit down," his mother commanded. Ethan sat down at the table. "What are you, teenagers or college students, so you can go to the movies? Normal people eat at home because normal women cook for them. You want your own movie? Go by yourself. Mother will sit alone. Nothing will happen to her. So she just shows up unannounced every 6 months," Jenna said. "Mom, are you offended? We didn't offer anything bad." "Fine, we won't go to the movies. We'll eat your specialty. Only, please, we can do it all in a good mood." Ethan resented it. "I don't get it. Did Camille complain about my moods?" The mother started up. "No, I can see how angry you are. So stop being a mother-in-law from the doorstep." "Nobody needs that," Ethan said. The kid's attempts to get Jenna made the situation even worse. Now she had lost the will to feed the kids her signature dinner. In addition, she had taken offense. Finally, everyone went to bed in a foul mood. "And I'm leaving," she said the next morning. "Why did you have such a good time with us for a week? Why don't you wait? At least 3 days. Camille asked. Last time it was good because your mother served you all the time. This time you didn't even bother to make a gesture in return. You're happy with everything. I'll leave. And if you want to see me later, you're welcome to come. I don't expect grandchildren anymore. Jenna said one last time and left without saying goodbye to Camille. Chapter 8. No sooner had Camille gotten away from Ethan's mother's visit than she got another call from her mom saying she was lost at the train station again. Camille rolled her eyes, hailed a cab, and went to look for her mother. She found her mother in the late afternoon and brought her home. Ethan had an important meeting at work that day and was running late. Camille cooked dinner with her own hands. While her mother was resting in the living room, suddenly she heard her mother screaming from the living room. She was shouting and cursing at the whole world. "Mom, what happened?" Camille came running in. "Is there a man in this house at all or not? Is there no one to fix the socket? I tried to charge my phone and I got an electric shock." My mother screamed. "That's all. How did you scare me?" "It happens because the power surges." "Let me turn your phone on myself," Camille said. The next scream came from the bathroom. Camille came running back in terror. "I can't get the shampoo. It's at the other end of the wall. You couldn't nail another shelf closer to the tub." Emily Ethan was going to nail it, but he's always busy at work. Camille excused herself. "If you don't have time to nail it down, you should at least rent another apartment where the shelves are already nailed down. I'm not talking about the fact that a family should have its own apartment," resented her mother, squeezing shampoo onto her head. At dinner, Camille was going to tell her mother more about Ethan's plans, about how hard he was trying, and what he was accomplishing. But her mother started talking about him first. "Does he often stay out late like this?" Emily asked. "No, not often. Once or twice a week," Camille replied, putting out a piece of fish and vegetables for her mother. "Where does he disappear to these days?" "Do you know?" asked the mother. "I know, either sitting in the office preparing another presentation or having a business dinner at a restaurant with his partners or friends of his boss," said Camille. "Who else is there?" "After the restaurant, they probably have a sequel still," said the mother. "Yes, there is a sequel. They go back to the office to fix new ideas or go to the soccer field to stretch their muscles," said Camille. "But that's what he's telling you," Emily persisted. "There's another version," Camille asked. "The true one. If you ever really want to know who you live with and who you give the best years of your life to." No matter how hard Camille tried to turn the conversation in a positive direction, there was no result. It was as if her mother had come to find out Ethan's faults and warn her daughter about them. She went to bed before Ethan arrived in a hurry with a bouquet of flowers and a cake for her. In the morning, Ethan decided to stay a little late from work to have breakfast with his esteemed potential mother-in-law. "I picked out the cake you like. I had to pick the flowers at random. I forgot to specify last time. What kind of flowers do you like?" said Ethan at the table. "Thank you, I saw that. But I don't like sweets, and I'm allergic to flowers, if you haven't guessed. A piece of paper might give you a clue." I'm sure she came up with the idea to buy these treats. I mean, what kind of man gets the idea? That's what Emily said. "Mom, I didn't tell Ethan anything. He really bought everything himself," Camille said. "And you weren't asked. You'd better think of something more important," said her mother, without changing the concrete expression on her face. Ethan immediately sensed the cold attitude and decided to make things right. "Emily, that time you and I had such a good time at the restaurant. Today I suggest we repeat that dinner. But before we do, why don't you relax? Here's some money. If you want, go shopping with Camille. Go to the spa if you want. Just make sure you're in a good mood for the evening," Ethan said, counting a few large bills. "What makes you think money will cheer women up? Or did you read the internet too? Have you listened to the counselors there? Is money the only thing that matters?" she asked, looking alternately at Camille and Ethan. "Mom, it's not about something global. It's about today, so that you and I can spend it to our advantage. That's all it is. There's no global meaning to it anymore," Camille said. feeling her awkward situation brewing. And you don't say anything. When does a mother talk to adults? Said Emily. It's about the fact that a woman should have her own personal space, a house or an apartment, and where she can unfold all her fantasy and create coziness. Have you been cozying up in a rented apartment until now? And if tomorrow there will be children, what then you are also going to grow in someone else's apartment? She asked. Ethan's mom is working on it. We'll have everything. And what's wrong with a rented apartment? Half the country, half the world lives like that. So what? We can afford it. And there are those who can't even afford a rented apartment in our city, so there's no tragedy in it. And we're not planning on having kids yet, because we're not even married yet. We just decided to try to prove ourselves in a new relationship. Then we'll see what happens, Camille said. Emily's eyes grew wide, and she dropped the fork from her hands deliberately. Are you the one who's open to the possibility that you might go your separate ways again? At your age, they're not planning on having kids. Then why are you living together? Why aren't you still married? Because you're leaving yourself a lot of room to maneuver. God, how stupid are you in your 40s? The mother read it. Both of them realized that they couldn't earn their mother's satisfaction under any circumstances, so they decided to be humble until their mother wanted to go home, and home she went in a bad mood. Chapter 9. The next unexpected guests were Christina and her husband William. They didn't really know Ethan yet, and had decided to get acquainted at the table today. Camille, how long have you two been together? William asked without implying anything. More than 6 months, I think. We've been living under the same roof for almost a year, Camille replied. Don't you have any plans to go away together, for example? That way you don't get bored. William and I are avid travelers. What am I telling you, Camille? You know all about it. We have to see one new country every 3 months. We've been all over the place. Holland, Switzerland, Spain, Malta. How many more are there? This time, we want to go to some jungle in Africa. It's going to be a great experience, Christina said with incredible inspiration. Well, we're not going anywhere yet. Ethan has a lot of work plans for the coming months, and I'd rather be at home than fussing, said Camille. That's how girls spoil their men. Ethan, don't believe it if she pretends to be so ascetic. In fact, every woman wants new experiences to explore the world. Or you do not tell each other your desires, and then one day it all comes out in a big scandal. That's not how it is with William and me. We like to make the most of life. Christina was bragging too. No, we have some ideas too, but the timing is uncertain. We'll go somewhere too, Ethan replied. Ethan, it's not important. When the time comes, we'll do it again. Just don't get distracted from your projects. Only I realize how important they are to you, Camille said, trying to smooth things over. But what about fishing on the weekends? At least you'll let Ethan go there with us for company. Soon the season will start, and we can go hunting. Or are you the kind of people who take care of nature? William made a joke. No, fishing and hunting are sacred. I'd love to get out there for a couple days myself. It just has to wait. Maybe not even this season, because I really need to work now, said Ethan. Well, it's all clear under the car, the tomb, the beach already. Don't listen to her, or at the next stage, they'll make you eat grass instead of meat. We know our ascetic mind, Camille joked back to Christina. When the boys went out on the balcony to smoke, Christina and Camille were left alone. So, what news is he ready? Asked Christina in a whisper. Ready for what? What do you mean? Asked Camille with surprise. You're like that schoolgirl, girlfriend. You've been together long enough. Isn't it time you got married and signed like normal people? Or are you against it too? Christina asked, perplexed. We haven't thought about it, haven't talked about it. We should deal with the present, leaving the future alone, said Christina. What a friend. Others are out of their skin to first at least somehow get a man on the common territory. What do you think this is done for? To actually take over his life and get into his life. It's a couple of crucial maneuvers before the marriage is official. In your case, you're lucky he's on your turf. Would you have gotten him to come to you or to him? Immediately girlfriend act, reminding him more often pretending that you are sad about it. I don't know. Think of different manipulations, Christina advised with a connoisseur's face. Do you think at our age manipulation is good for us? Camille asked ironically. At your age. On the contrary, you have to step up the dosage in everything. It certainly doesn't suit you to walk around in such uncertainty, said Christina. You know, Christina, we're having a good time today. Let's hope tomorrow will be good too. And I don't want to complicate things with abstract conversations, said Camille. Because you're stupid. He's working hard right now. Well, according to you. What's all this for? Right, to get back on his feet. And you're just convenient. Tomorrow he'll make you a lot of money, say goodbye, and you'll be broke. Apparently, that's where it's headed. He's got your attitude. You don't want anything. And he's happy because he doesn't have to worry about anything. You'll remember what I said Christina. Well, didn't the girls miss us? Ethan was already in the living room. Camille immediately switched to him and served dessert. The perfect married couple, Christina and William, gave many more tips and ideas. They went home well past 0 o'clock. Chapter 10. Ethan, you and I don't have a lot of counselors. I don't even know how to go on. We should ask someone right away. Why don't we invite one of your friends? Camille suggested, lying in bed and drinking her coffee on a day off close to lunchtime. There are some, but I'm saving their acquaintance for a rainy day. When you and I have no counselors left at all. There seem to be enough for now, Ethan said. And they both laughed. I have an idea. It's Christina's birthday tomorrow. She told me that she and William are going to a hotel in the woods that day. Let's go over there today and get some scotch and congratulate them. We won't be there long. Camille suggested it. I'm in favor of hearing some new advice. If it's not enough, we'll have to go on to our mothers, said Ethan. And they had another long laugh. Camille had to ring the doorbell for a long time before Christina opened it, and when she saw her friend with ears in her eyes, she was horrified. Come in. I'm home alone, she said. What's wrong with your eyes? Have you been crying? Camille asked. Taking a seat on the sofa. It's nothing. How are you? Why didn't you give me a warning? I didn't even sneak home, said Christina. Indeed, in a spacious apartment with good repair was a terrible mess. It's not a big deal. You'll pick on it at your own pace. We're not your supervisors or mother-in-law. Where's William? Did you think we could chat about vacation options with him today? Ethan asked. Christina was about to say something, but tears got in the way. The words Camille had to make a cocktail of sedatives to calm her down a little and finally spoke out. He's at his place again. He used to hide at least shy, but now he doesn't care, Christina said. His own. Who's that? Asked Ethan, sincerely not understanding her words. Anyway, he's been into partying since the beginning. Last year, he picked up a girl in a club somewhere, lied to her about being single. Then she came over to our house. I had to deal with her myself. I thought about kicking him out, but he promised me it wouldn't happen again. He swore he only loved me. 6 months later, some new redhead showed up. This one was more brazen than the other one. She called me 2 months ago. I did not give in to her provocations, but she does not calm down, calls him in front of me. And he leaves and runs to her. Last week, I caught them together in a hotel room. And he's not even ashamed or remorseful anymore. I put a shard of glass in her face, and he stood up for her, hit me. Christina sobbed. God, how can you do that? And then what? Camille asked. Then the scandal continued at home. We fought with him all night. The baby heard everything. He hasn't slept since. He doesn't even care about the baby. In the morning, he took his stuff and left. She's been sending me pictures of them together ever since, Christina said, and cried even louder. If it's so bad, why do you keep living with him? Is there any other way to save yourself from this nightmare? Camille asked. Careful. You mean divorce? I thought about it many times, but he warned me that he wouldn't give me a divorce because I'd have to divide my property, and I don't have anything of my own. Everything is jointly owned, Christina said through her tears. Camille tried to find some words to calm her down, but she couldn't. After spending a little time with her friends, she and Ethan hurried away, as neither he nor she could think of any comforting words to offer. Chapter 1. How about we walk home? Ethan suggested. After they left Christina's house, I was going to suggest the same thing to you. I feel bad that I couldn't find words to comfort my friend, Camille admitted. It's understandable, because you see the world differently, said Ethan. How? Camille wondered. Don't you try to pull reality around your ears. Well, let's say that if you were married to that William, you would have left him long ago and would be married to someone else by now. I understand he and Christina had a different relationship. He didn't really want it, but she really needed it. Women's tricks, manipulation, and so on. Men are pragmatic. William decided it would be one less problem if he got married, when the occasion arose when the lady herself insisted. In such cases, the man initially consoles himself with the thought that in extreme cases will go out with other women, since they don't want to respect his will, Ethan said. That sounds about right. I made a mistake once and honestly admitted to myself afterward that there would be no more coercion, neither myself nor the other. And everyone around me presses that only on compulsion you can build something. And then they cried bitterly like that. Camille said, sighing heavily, I don't like to think and talk about all this. Let's switch gears. For example, I dream of someday accidentally seeing an alien and getting his opinion about us. Earthlings, says Camille. You'd then have to make sedative cocktails for the alien too, said Ethan. And I'm curious to know what outer space looks like. Well, it must be very quiet, said Ethan. It's not quiet. I read somewhere that every minute there's an explosion of celestial bodies, and there's a rumble. Mommy, don't be sad, said Camille, while they were talking about everything. An argument arose between them. Ethan cited the authoritative research of scientists. Camille wasn't going to give up, based on the videos she had watched. She finally decided to end the argument in a different way. Let's buy 2 bottles of wine from that supermarket over there, but no glasses. Whoever drinks the whole bottle from their throat first is right. She suggested it. Dibs. Then I won't carry you in my arms, and you won't break any dishes at home. When the bottles were empty, the couple forgot about their argument. Instead, they wondered about other things. Ethan, where the hell are we going? It's some new park. I never saw it again, Camille said. Well, I have, and I've got something in mind. You stay here and keep watch. If you see anyone, you whistle to me quietly. Don't you run away from me, Ethan said, and disappeared into the darkness. Camille sat down on the bench and admired the silence of the night and the full moon. After a while, she heard loud male voices. Let me just pay the fine, and we'll call it a day, said a male voice in which Camille recognized Ethan. No, that won't do. We're doing a raid right now, and we're going to take you to the station and find out what's going on. That's what it says in the report, that the intoxicated citizen was digging in the bushes, the policeman said to his companion. Hey, guys, what's the big deal? Is digging in the bushes a crime now? Camille shouted to them. Oh, he's not alone yet. Right, there are accomplices, said the policeman, and approached Camille. We have arrested a man for suspicious behavior. What are you doing here at this hour? Asked the policeman. Because I sent him there. He confessed his love to me, and I demanded proof. So he went to pick flowers. Let me pay the fine, and you let us go. I already believe my chosen one, Camille said. And that's the kind of romantics you'd expect. Romeo and Juliet. All right, this time we forgive you, but don't disturb the public order again, and you should be more careful digging in the bushes at night. Otherwise, we could mistake him for drug dealers, the policeman said, before he let Ethan go. And this is for you, ma'am. If you hadn't come up with an excuse to prove your love, they would have taken me to the police station, Ethan said, holding out fresh flowers plucked from a clearing in the park. Look, I don't want to go to sleep yet. It's only 4 o'clock in the morning, Camille said. I have an idea, said Ethan. He whistled to the cab driver along the road, and they sped off. A few minutes later, Ethan and Camille found themselves in another old park where few people usually go. Wow, how do you know this place? Camille was surprised. I didn't. I was driving by one day and thought I'd come here. It used to be interesting when I was a teenager, Ethan said. I remember seeing this park on TV when I was a kid. Those rides don't get out of my head. I remember my mom and dad decided to surprise me for my birthday. They brought me here, played all day till I fell off my feet, and now I'm just so nostalgic. Camille raved about it. I say we take a ride on the Ferris wheel. They say that if you make a wish at the highest point, it will come true, said Ethan. Take a walk around the city at night. A middle-aged couple sat down on the porch of a building. I can't walk anymore, Camille declared. I'm also too thirsty to drink water and then lie down and sleep for 3 days. I'm tired too. Shall we take a cab, or are you going to hang me? Ethan suggested. Let's find someone to carry you and me, said Camille, who was still tongue-tied. Finding themselves in the yard of his house, Camille had to sober up sharply. She didn't believe her eyes at first, but then she did. A man standing not far from the driveway turned sharply to the side and pounced on Ethan. Oh, so this is who you cheated on me with. I'll show your no. How does it feel to go out with other people's women? Camille, Noah's ex-husband, shouted and hit her in the face one after another. Camille was not confused. She deftly dragged Noah away and kicked him to the ground. During this time, Ethan managed to get up off the ground and was just getting ready to strike back, until Camille held him down. Don't do that. He'll drag you through the courts in return. If they take you away, I'll have no one to protect me from him, Camille begged. Meanwhile, Noah had regained his strength and attacked Ethan again. The fight lasted long enough until Camille started screaming at the top of her voice for help. It turned out that someone had already called the police at the beginning of the show. By then, they'd already arrived and had Noah in custody. What a crazy guy you had, Ethan said, while Camille tended to the wounds on his arms and body. I don't even want to think about him, Camille said. It was your words that stopped me. I'd have given him a pissing contest to get him out of here, Ethan said. Chapter 12. Camille, just be honest. If you want to see someone close to you on New Year's Eve, let's invite them. I don't think it's going to be boring for the second year in a row. I'm used to it, Ethan said, in the morning when Camille hasn't even woken up yet. I beg you, no close friends with their advice and guidance, especially with the questions I'm asking you. We don't need anyone else, said Camille and went back to sleep. But sleep never came. Christina called. Camille, hi. What are your plans for tonight? She asked. Tonight's plans are very noble. No frills. We'll be in a good mood and relaxed. What are yours? She asked. You know, I have an idea. I feel better already. I'm getting away from William. The baby has also become calmer. I think it's time for me to introduce you to someone. His name is Oleg, and he's cool. You have serious intentions, Christina declared. Congratulations, Camille replied briefly. But Camille, that's not what I mean. Sam is a companionable man, and his colleagues are inviting him to go out today. But as a couple, we have to spend the holiday together, and he's complaining that he'll be bored. So I found a compromise to invite you and Ethan, Christina said. Camille hesitated. She wondered whether or not she should tell her friend something important. In the end, she couldn't resist. Crisis had just recently gotten rid of one problematic person at the cost of everything. Now would be a good time for you to keep your eyes wide open. A man wants to live his life the way he likes, and you ignore that. If this goes on, you'll find a compromise way to marry him off. And then it starts all over again. Oh, he doesn't love me. He's cheating on me. etc. You've been through this before. You don't need to make that mistake again. I'll tell you something bitter. You let him go with his friends and let him out of your heart and life. Keep your heart free so that a decent man doesn't run into a wall, Camille said. Christina did not like her friend's words. Camille, I'm not asking you for advice on how to live my life. I'm just inviting you to visit, she said. Camille realized that Christina didn't get the point, but she had no desire to explain further. She politely declined the invitation and hung up. As fate would have it, that was the end of their friendship. Camille began to prefer the company of people with other views on life. She was not sorry to lose those with whom she had different opinions. Chapter 13. Camille, I realize how much you dislike housework, but you will soon have to devote some time to it, Ethan said. My mom's coming to visit. Carefully, Camille asked. No, it looks like we'll be evicted from here, said Ethan. How come? What happened? Why are we being evicted? Camille was horrified. We are leaving of our own free will. A company owed our organization a large sum of money and then declared bankruptcy, and the assets are being distributed against their debt. My boss consulted with me about whether to take real estate or choose something else from their arsenal. I told him to go with real estate. He doesn't want to deal with the sale and other formalities. I offered to buy one of these apartments. I can't wait until I launch my project and the money comes in. It's a good deal. We're already settling in. I give part of the money, and the other part we'll earn over time. We'll solve the apartment issue. I will have more strength for my projects because I will relieve myself of tension. So soon we'll have a 2-bedroom apartment, Ethan said as he left for work. Camille found it painful to imagine their move. This was an important stage of her life. She had moved here once to get away from everyone and live only for herself. She had succeeded in partly living for herself. She learned to distance herself from people without having to, which she was very happy about. While she was thinking about all this, Ethan, who had recently left for work, called. Why did you forget something? She asked. Get dressed and go out to the yard. A cab is coming to pick you up. Sit down and come. He knows the address, Ethan said. Camille did not ask any more questions. Ethan doesn't like to be taken in by nonsense. If he asks for something, it's the right thing to do. As soon as she stepped out into the courtyard, a cab pulled up as well. She was driving while playing on her phone, so she didn't look at the road when she got out of the car. You saw a familiar building, and Ethan was standing in front of it with a bouquet of flowers. Marry me. Did you at least bring your passport? We have check-in in 10 minutes, Ethan said. I always have it with me in case they call me to check in. Camille said 10 minutes and showed her passport. Why are you being so rambling? Camille asked. And after they registered their marriage. Because after lunch. The real estate transaction will be our jointly acquired property, said Ethan. Oh, here we go. I hadn't even thought of that, Camille said. And she made a genuinely surprised face, but she's obviously lying.